Welcome everybody to another great episode of the Beyond Normal podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Groom. I have a very special guest that I want to bring to the stage, specializing in financial services. As you all know, this season we are focusing on local business owners, founders in the Charlotte area and just different regions that support diverse founders, Black founders. And so I'm very excited to have with us today Leah Young, co-founder of Impact the Culture Financial Group. But without further ado, let's bring Leah to the stage. Oh, wait, like I just want you all to remember we're doing episodes in person. At times it's going to take me just a second to get adjusted to having the guests here live with me. But without further ado, Leah, how are you doing today?
I am. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I just want to thank you so much for hopping on season 6. We're on season 6. We just released our first episode. If you all are on your favorite streaming platform, make sure if you're listening to this, you go back to that first episode of the season. And just while you're at it, listen to all our episodes. We want to make sure that all the incredible Black founders that are on our platform get your ear for a second. But yeah, I want to spend a little bit of time letting folks know about what you're doing in the financial services space. Maybe we can start things off by just letting folks know what's your background prior to you starting this incredible company.
Yeah, sure. Before I even get into that, Kenny, thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm super excited. It's my first podcast. Let's hope this goes well. This goes well. But yeah, and congratulations on 6 seasons. That's awesome. So, what is my background? But it definitely is not in the financial services space. Growing up, I actually wanted to be a writer. So I was writing short stories and had the beginnings of a novel. And then I got really interested in film writing and making movies. And I did a semester at the Seattle Film Institute. So I really thought I was going to be like Issa Rae, Ava DuVernay. That was really my goal. At that time, I was really starting to think about it was probably like 2019, right after Nipsey passed, and just learning about what he was doing in his community. I'm from a small neighborhood in Greensboro, North Carolina, and both my parents are from this neighborhood. My grandparents on both sides are from this neighborhood. So I was really starting to think about legacy and trying to follow his blueprint on putting my neighborhood on the map. So when financial services came into or just fell in my lap, it was like, oh, I see what you're doing there, God. Because I really thought I was about to go move to an island, take pictures and read books and write. And I pretty much focus on me, what I wanted to do. And God has this unique way of pivoting us so that we are not self-seeking, but doing service. So that's really how I came into the industry. That's a little bit about my background. I also worked admin, corporate, and different things like that. But that's how I came into the industry. My co-founder, business partner, she was recruited, and I was starting to listen to the way that these young people of color were talking about money and wealth, and again, just this legacy building. And I was like, let me really start to listen. And then I actually heard God say, Leah, really listen to what's going on here. This is what's going to set your family free. So that's how I came into the industry and a little bit about my background.
Yeah, I love it. There's a couple things that stood out as you were talking. Your knack for storytelling, wanting to be a writer. I think that's really cool. That's a skill set where it's one of those things where once you tell somebody that, they're like, oh, you can just go write books. And it's not necessarily like you can really craft stories as a business owner,
Right.
no matter the
Right.
industry. And so you going into financial services, I think that's really cool because we need better stories. We need new stories to be told in that space.
Exactly.
And then the piece on around Nipsey, just like seeing his business mentality, his acumen grow, and what he was building during that time. I think that was definitely motivational to a lot of people, and so it's really cool that you took that motivation. Using Nipsey as somewhat of a muse, right, for your business undertakings. I think that's that's a way that we don't think about our entertainers a lot of times. Like we just see them as
Well, there are very
entertainers.
few that we can think of like that. So, but
That's the debate.
that's
Yeah,
another
that's a debate.
podcast topic, I guess.
Yeah, that's a hot topic. But what he was doing, telling his own story, you being a story in the telling your own stories, like what about financial services? Like what part of the story was missing for you? We all know that when we go to a movie, there's a beginning, there's some type of setup, there's some climax, there's some moments of discomfort, and then there's usually that triumph at the end. So I'm curious, like where from a financial services perspective are you inserting your pen
I
at
got
this
you.
moment?
Yeah. So I guess the beginning is we all have a money blueprint. And it's usually passed down to us from our parents or grandparents or just someone else. And for me, it was graduating high school, my father telling me two things. He said, Leah, save your money and protect your credit. So that
Mhm.
was the beginning or sort of the foundations of my money blueprint. Granted, that was all he knew to tell me, but it was a start. Of course, I get a bank account, I'm saving money, and I'm hearing this thing called interest. And I'm wondering, okay, I'm gonna start to see my money grow in the bank. And credit, okay, I'm on campus and there are credit cards everywhere. So
Mm.
I get a couple credit cards, but I don't know anything about these things, these products, right? So of course, if we're telling the story, it's okay, that's the beginning. And then you start
Mhm.
to accumulate this debt, right? Not even just from the cards, but even from my student loans, just going to college. So now I'm accumulating debt. But again, I don't have any education behind what these products are supposed to do, how to utilize them properly. So I'm just out here balling. Like I'm
Like we
just
all we
spending, right.
all
We've
we
all been there,
yeah, we
right,
all
guys?
who have gone to college have got that check, that refund check,
Right.
or just a lump sum of money. Maybe you got some scholarship money here and there. You just got that lump sum of money in your account.
And
And like you
no one
said,
is telling you what to do with this money, right?
yep.
No one is saying, hey, save, or maybe you can invest, or,
Someone is telling us what to do. McDonald's,
yes.
cookouts here, if you're in the North Carolina area,
Yes.
all the
The
department stores,
mall.
they're telling us what to do with that
Come,
money.
come, spend, spend,
Yep.
spend. So I quickly became a consumer, a spender. And that was, I would say, my trajectory for many years, ups, downs, all of that. And it really wasn't until I got into the industry and I had coaches and mentors and other people that were like minded that were able to educate me. So the first time I actually heard, and again, I had gone to college, worked in corporate America. But no one was teaching me about money. I didn't even have life insurance at the time. Just coming into the industry, being around like-minded people that really wanted to educate me first and foremost, tell me about these products, tell me how I could set my family up. Because again, I'm thinking legacy. My grandmother, she just turned 100. God bless her. Um, I was really starting to think, okay, when she's no longer here, who steps up as the matriarch of our family and is able to pass down all the lessons that myself and my cousins my age were able to glean from her? Who's going to pass that down to their kids and their kids? So I really just wanted to be someone who could not only educate my family, but then start to educate my community. But if I first had to learn it myself. So that would be the, what do they call that? The story arc
The
or
story
whatever.
arc.
Yes.
Yep.
Of how I came into the industry and what it means to me. And when you think about how, as a creative, we're always, even if we're not working in art or being creative, we're doing our 9 to 5 or whatever, we're always looking for ways to use that side of our brain. And in our industry, we're always saying facts tell, stories sell, or facts sell, stories tell. One of the two. I might be getting it backwards, but needless to say, when you're telling a story to someone, that is what's really going to pull them in. And when it comes to our money and financial services and what we want to be able to do for our families, you can tell a lot of stories. There are a lot of stories where people got it right. There are unfortunately more stories where people got it wrong. But again, there is that turning point where it's like, hey, now I'm learning. So I can go from not knowing to starting to learn and implement, and then being able to change that narrative for my family.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing how you think about the story that you're trying to tell. I'm curious. I want to dig into the story of you as a co-founder. You do have somebody else that you're building the business with. In terms of the story arc for a co-founder, right? There's definitely more than one moment most of the time for founders where you hit your head against the wall. There's some trials and tribulations. So I'm curious if you can share a little bit about, for your specific story, what are some trials and tribulations that you've had to overcome in your storyline to becoming the co-founder that you are now?
The question. And there's so many because it was so new to me. I had never really been in an entrepreneurial space before. And again, being a creative, I tend to work just, I don't want to say lackadaisical. As inspiration comes, then you flush it out and that kind of work ethic, so to speak.
Hmm.
So the biggest challenge I would say was just the discipline of it. The discipline, the consistency. And with my co-founder, it was new to her as well. So not only are we learning a business, very new business, and then again, when you're talking about money, it's one of those things that first of all, we don't grow up in houses where we talk about money. And now we're going into other people's homes and trying to educate them about money. So there's a little bit of like imposter syndrome there, I would say a little bit for me. I don't know what I'm doing. I know that there's a presentation. I know what I'm talking about. I've been coached. I have great mentors. I go to training. I'm prepared to educate somebody else. But then there's still that little like, uh, you just started this. How do you go into, and then the financial industry just doesn't look like me either, typically. So there's that part of it too, where it's okay, I don't look like your average or typical or traditional insurance agent. And that was the beautiful thing about the agency that I came in under as well. It was really diverse and getting away from that traditional white male older demographic when it came to an agent. So first getting over building the confidence, getting over that sort of imposter syndrome, and then once you have, or once I had the skill set, which is always ever growing and you're always learning, but once I felt comfortable with the skill set, then it became the discipline and the consistency of building a business, building a team, leading other agents, being able to help them also grow their agencies as well. So it was a lot of moving pieces, but the biggest one was just the work ethic, just fine tuning that. And I'm still a work in progress there, Kenny. Like I'm still have that art creative mind where it's like, oh, I just want to sit back and read and do this and work on this. And oh, I have this idea. But really just trying to understand that this is where I am and being present and focusing on the growth of my business.
No, that makes sense. And I think that it sounds like what you're alluding to. We know some people, if you give them a coloring book, for example, and they're set lines, they still figure out a way to like, make it their own.
Mhm.
Versus some of us, we think of, if we see a picture of a character we all know, say Mickey Mouse, for example,
Right.
some of us are going to say Mickey Mouse has black skin, red pants, yellow
Right.
button,
Exactly.
right? White gloves. But some of us will say, like my daughter, she may say, nah, he's going to be purple today.
Exactly.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And that's okay. And
Yep.
so figuring out how, in any circumstance, whatever that coloring book is, like you figure out how to color your own way. I think that's okay.
Yeah, especially if you have the support that allows that. And
Mhm.
fortunately for us, we do, where it isn't just strict, hey, this is our rules, this is our system. Granted, we do have a system and it's founded and all of that, but there is room for that creativity. There's room for you to brand yourself. There's room for you to just put your own stamp and on your own flavor on the financial services industry. It doesn't have to be this stuffy thing that people don't want to talk about. If we can make it interesting, we can make it fun, if we can bring ourselves and our own personalities into it to connect with the families, because ultimately that's really what it's about. If I'm sitting down at a kitchen table with a family, I need to be able to connect with them.
Mhm.
And they want to be able to connect with me because we're talking about their legacy. We're talking about their retirement, possibly. They want to be able to know that I'm a human being. I want to be able to tell my story, and we want to connect that way.
Yeah, I love it. So talk a little bit about like just the structure of your business, and then obviously there's some infrastructure that helps you run your business, right? In terms of the company that you partner with. This is typically not the founder that we have highlighted on our platform, but I just say that to say our listeners may not necessarily be familiar with these type of stories on Beyond Normal. So tell folks a little bit about how your like the agreement is structured, and then just overall like what the business dynamics are between you and your co-founder and the entities that are supporting you.
Gotcha. Impact the Culture Financial Group is part of an FMO, financial marketing organization, which just means I have a parent company. When you think of financial services, you might think of, or life insurance or insurance in general, you might think of State Farm, that name. But when you go drive around the city, you might see Kenny's State Farm or Mark's State Farm or John's State Farm. So each of those businesses are their own entity, but they partner with State Farm because the State Farm is the bigger name. So it's very similar to that. Impact the Culture is our business, but we've partnered with a parent company. That way they take care of all of the legal, the C-suite execs, the commissions, making sure we get contracted and appointed with the different insurance companies. So I don't have to take care of I think one of the things that prevents a lot of people from going into entrepreneurship is the magnitude of what starting a business could be, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I get my LLC and taxes and all of these things, pay my employees, right? For me, I found it very seamless to transition into entrepreneurship because someone else was going to take care of that part for me. All I had to do is focus on, okay, learning the business, learning about the products and services, learning how to be a leader, because that's a big part of who we are, especially when you're being a founder or
Mm-hmm.
leading other people or building a team. You step into that role. So if you haven't been there, you want to take time to learn that, personally developing, reading the books and all of that stuff. So for me, it was just a seamless transition to go into it that way without having to worry about all of the extra stuff. So they take care of that part for me. I get to focus on serving my community.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the founders that we've had on, they talk about, I asked them a question similar to what I just asked you, and they talk about a lot of times removing the things that keep them from enjoying what they do. A lot of
Right.
times it's about, hey, how do I interact with my community, sell the products, and build the solutions and software and things like that that my community needs, so I can
Right.
ultimately deliver value. And being proficient in things like taxes
Yeah.
and
The
lunch
different
services and
software.
all the other
Yeah.
things that go with running a business, leading a team, it can be really overwhelming
It can be.
for sure. You mentioned just creating your LLC. I had so many panic attacks when it comes to taxes because I'm like, all right, did I do my LLC right and things like that? I'm more the person that'll sit there and at least do an initial pass of it before I figure out how to pay somebody to do
Mhm.
it. But that hasn't always led me to doing it correctly.
Yeah.
So I will say that I respect your perspective as well
And I
because,
yours,
yeah,
because I know that even in the industry, I sat on a panel a few months ago with other insurance agency owners that had gone a more traditional route, I guess I'll say, and just talking about what they go through as far as growing their businesses and reaching out to other carriers and different things like that. It was something I couldn't necessarily relate to because I didn't have to have those struggles. Now, there
got it.
are still struggles, but I didn't have those particular ones. And again, being someone that was new to entrepreneurship, math and business, those were not my strong suits. I majored in psychology. Again, I told you I'm a creative. So
Hmm.
when you start talking numbers and spreadsheets. I get lost. So this was a perfect path for me. God knew exactly what he was
Nah,
doing.
yeah, that's dope. That's dope. So you just touched on being on that panel. I'm curious, you have a co-founder.
Mhm.
So tell me a little bit around some of the learnings, not necessarily in a panel setting, but just some of the learnings you and your co-founder have gone through. Because I think there's definitely always going to be a debate. People say, should I go into something on my own? Should I have
Right.
a co-founder? Should I go with somebody I know?
Mhm.
So I'm curious, like, what's that dynamic with you and your co-founder?
It was, again, new for both of us, right? So we were we bumped heads a lot because our personalities are also very different. So for us, it was really a matter of finding, okay, who's going to do what? And that's in our sort of industry or in our agency, when you have two people working together, it really does come down to, okay, who's stronger in this, or prospecting, or maybe, running this type of appointment, or you just find your strengths, right? And then communication was a big one, learning to, and for me, I'm an introvert. So I'm not naturally inclined to speak up or just insert myself or be assertive. That's another thing I tend to want to work on right now. But just learning how to communicate. I was just on a call with one of my mentors, and that question was asked, how do we do that? How do we work together? And his answer was, first and foremost, there has to be respect, right? You have to start there. So for us, it was finding that rhythm, that line of communication where there was mutual respect, and then figuring out who's stronger in certain areas, and then not crossing that line. If that's what you're going to do and that's what you said you're going to do, okay, then I'm not going to necessarily encroach on that. I'm going to let you do your thing, and she's going to let me do my thing, and that's how we managed to do this thing for the past 4 years.
Oh,
But
that's
there have
good.
been some bumping heads and
Yeah.
arguments and walking away and coming back and all of that good
Mhm.
stuff.
It's a relationship at the end of the day. So
That it
there's no
is.
surprise that there's some difficult moments, some moments with some tension.
Of course.
That's going to be expected, right?
Yes, like that's part of the five dysfunctions of a team, right? There, you got to know how
Hmm.
to do conflict,
Yeah,
right? There's
yeah,
got to
for
be
sure.
trust and all of those things. Yeah.
So you mentioned your knack for reading. You did come in with a book
I
that you're
always have
reading,
a book.
right? And what's a book that you read lately? This is all off of the
Oh,
cuff,
yeah.
right? What's a
Okay.
book that you read lately that you've been able to incorporate into your business strategy?
Okay, so the last one that I really enjoyed was Pinky Cole's I Hope You Fail. Just hearing her story, her journey, how she even got into entrepreneurship, how she started out as a creative as well. She was in TV production. I hope I'm not getting this wrong, her story wrong, but she started off in TV production, and then she had the idea for restaurants, and just how she talks so much about not just her journey, but the mistakes she made, the things she would do differently, and it was just so fun and down to earth. It was just a great read for me. And a lot of what I'm focusing on right now in my business, as I mentioned, is just building my confidence, working on my identity as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, walking confidently in that role. I like to read a lot of memoirs from people that are had that same trajectory. Maybe they didn't really think they were going to be an entrepreneur. They wasn't really always something they thought they would do, especially in something that's completely foreign to them,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, I would say her book is awesome. Awesome, awesome. Yeah.
I gotta check that one out. And you're a reader, I can tell. Again, she came in with a book, so I have to ask people who are readers, like,
And
what's
this
of
one that I'm
interest to
reading
you?
right now is by Yvonne Orji, Bamboozled by Jesus. So again, she's talking about her journey from being a Nigerian American, having that path of becoming a doctor, and then God pivoting her into entertainment. Just being able to hear and relate and to those types of stories, it really is helpful for me because it's like, one, you're not alone, and then Everybody goes through these similar struggles when they're trying to achieve a goal and working on that discipline and the consistency and believing in yourself. All of these things factor into becoming or being an entrepreneur or reaching a goal or anything like that that you're trying to do.
Got it. I love it. I love it. I'm an audiobook
Okay, I
person.
do
Does
too.
that
Yeah.
count too?
Yeah, I think it does. And I used to be one of those readers that was like, no, you got to give me a book. I need pages. I'm building a library. But recently I've started listening to audios. I do Kindles because I don't always necessarily want to bring I usually
It's a
have
book.
a
It's a book
book.
book.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
usually in the car, I'm not listening to music as much. I'm popping in an audiobook. And then at nighttime, sometimes when I wake up just randomly, I don't necessarily want to turn on the light and read, but then I've got my little Kindle there. So now I
hmm
can get a couple 20, 30 minutes of reading, fall back asleep. So I use all three. I'm physical, Kindle, or electronic device. I don't know if I'm supposed to rep any brands.
That's fine.
Electronic device, and then of course listening.
Yeah, I love it. Let's talk a little bit about your customer
Okay.
experience. We talked a lot about stories and the care and the focus that you put into narratives and things like that on this call. Tell listeners, what is the experience like from the initial kind of interaction with you or your co-founder when they're looking to buy services or product from your business? Walk us a little bit through that.
Sure. So impact is actually an acronym. Okay. So it stands for inspire, motivate, protect, ascend, and connect the culture. So that's what impact, that's our mission essentially. So when you think about families that we want to serve, first it starts with how can I inspire them to want to even think differently about their financial situation? Because sometimes it can be very overwhelming, especially if you feel like you've made a lot of mistakes and
Mm.
you don't think that there's anything that you can do differently, or maybe you're older and you think it's too late to do anything differently. So we just want to first sit down when we're thinking about how can we reach the family? How we want to inspire them, then we want to educate them. We want to be able to, and through that education, motivate them to say, okay, I think I can do this. I really want to start thinking about generational wealth. This is something that I hadn't really considered. I do have young children. I do want to be able to do something differently for them. So we start with that first. And then it's okay, let's come up with a strategy. Tell me what your goals are when it comes to your financial future. What is it that you want to do? Do you want to be able to buy a home? Do you want to get better at saving? Do you
Mhm.
want to start thinking about retirement? What are those things? Do you want to save for your kids' education? What are your goals? And then based on those goals, we come up with a strategy because financial education or life insurance for us is not a one size fits all. Sure, you can go on the internet and purchase a policy, but you really do want to have that personal interaction and that personal education when it comes to my financial future and protecting my legacy or protecting my retirement income. I don't want to just do that over the phone or through my computer. I would prefer to have someone sit down and walk me through the process. So that's what we do. So we find out the best strategy because we're brokers. We get to work with several different insurance companies, not just one. So it's not just a one size fits all kind of product that we offer. And from there, we determine, hey, how much insurance you need, because a lot of people come to us and they are underinsured, which means maybe they're just relying on their work policy. Maybe they have
Mm.
nothing at all. So to first determine after the education is how much insurance do you actually need? A lot of times, and we do edify whatever a family has. So if you do come and like, oh, I've got $100,000 and sweet, you have something that's awesome, but you also have a mortgage that you're still paying on. You have two small kids, your income, and our policies, we offer living benefits. So that means we're trying to also change the narrative around life insurance where we're not just thinking about this is something that I use when I'm no longer here, but
Mm.
how can I actually utilize this product while I'm still alive? So we figure out how much insurance you need. And then because we want you to think of this as an asset, not another bill. We want to make sure it's affordable for you, right? So that you protect it like you would protect your home or your car or your stocks or anything like that. We want to make sure that it's affordable. So you take it seriously. And we don't want you to be in a situation where, okay, I got to figure out if I'm going to pay my life insurance or my car payment. We don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure it's affordable. So we look at your discretionary income, right? What after everything else is paid, what is left over? And that's where we also find a lot of families are upside down in their finances. So we do a small budget or a financial analysis just to figure out where the family is and where we can help them achieve that goal.
Got it. I love that. So I would say in our household, we are like insurance crazy.
Okay.
Mainly because my wife, we have so much insurance, it's ridiculous. So I understand the need for it.
Yes.
Thinking about business owners that are out there, maybe they're a startup founder, maybe there's somebody who's like bootstrapping their business. They may not necessarily always be in the best financial situations. I'm curious, are there some like really important first steps for them to take that you give advice on for those founders, business owners that are out there who are like bootstrapping their business and they're just not a lot of resources readily available for them to throw into the whole gambit of services that you have to offer? I'm curious.
So it's really just a matter of meeting the client, the family, the business owner where they are, right? Everybody is not looking for a product that they can put $50,000 into and start it up and let it grow and sit. And not everybody's situation, but we want to meet whomever it is where they are. So I would say first start with the education. Just get educated, right? Know available, know what's out there. And then when we do that financial analysis, we're going to make sure that it is appropriate and that it fits where you are now. A lot of times people get excited about the possibilities of when you think about stocks and all of these things where it's like, oh, yes, I can get into this and I can see my money grow very quickly. But that might not be where you are right now. That's something you can aspire to for sure. And we can make sure that we set you on a path to get there. But we're going to meet you where you are. So if that's just a $15, $20 term right now, then that's what we're going to do.
That's it.
Right. If you have different resources and you want to expand on that, then we can have that conversation as well. So we work with everybody. We're not leaving anybody behind in this situation.
Got it. I think that part is really cool. I've been talking to a lot of founders who are like in the B2B space. I think there's plenty of opportunity. And I think through your services, definitely there's probably a lot of B2C in what you're doing. But then there's also that B2B component for the business founders. There's founders that are out there that are just trying to make sure that their family is whole.
Right.
They have to take that into account when they're looking at their business trajectory. And so talking to somebody like you, they're securing their family, which ultimately that's gonna secure their business. They're gonna feel really comfortable moving forward with their business, knowing that home front is taken care of.
Absolutely. And then if you're working with a partner, because I know we touched on that a little bit, making sure that you may need some key person type insurance or just something that, again, making sure your business is whole if anything were to happen. That's the space that we're in. We're trying to give you that peace of mind that, hey, we've taken care of the foundation. We've taken care of, hey, if anything happens here, we're going to be okay. If anything happens at home, we're going to be okay. We just want to give people that peace of mind.
Got it. So how can folks reach out? What's the best way for them to make sure they're tapping in with the brand?
IG. That's a good space, a good platform. I can drop it here.
Go ahead and drop it.
Yeah, so it's Leah, LEAHMY_impact on Instagram. There's a Calendly link there as well. So you can just click on that link and schedule your free wealth consultation. It's usually about a 30-minute conversation, like I said, where we talk about your goals, do some basic financial literacy education, and come up with a strategy to help you achieve that goal.
Appreciate that. You've dropped so many gems on this conversation. It really stood out to me. You coming in with the book, you letting me know like how you think from the very first kind of words that we've had. I can really tell like how the gears are working. So it's really cool to see you build your business your way.
Thank
You have a co-founder, and so I'm always interested to see how co-founder tandems are figuring things out, because I don't have a co-founder.
Yeah.
Maybe one day. It sounds like it's amazing, but I know the grass always seems greener when you compare it and you start
Yeah,
comparing
of
things.
course.
But I appreciate you coming on the platform. I'm definitely
Thank
going to
you for
make sure
having
that
me.
we put that social media call out in our notes
Yes,
so folks
please do.
can tap in.
Yes.
Lastly, I'll leave it to you. Is there anything you want to leave our listeners with as we close out the conversation?
Let me think about that. So I think if I wanted anybody to take, or what I want people to take away from this conversation, is that with the right education, and we are a big component of education, with the right education, anyone can become the generational hero of their family and change the generational trajectory of their family legacy. If they know better, people will do better. And that's where we focus. We just want you to have the information, because a lot of times we feel like we don't, or we didn't learn this, or how is it that I got to 38 and no one taught me this? We want to be that resource. Impact the Culture wants to be that resource, and we want you to know that once you know better, we'll help you do better.
Perfect way to end. Thanks for tuning in to another great episode of the Beyond Normal podcast.